cancer. Well, come on. I bet if there were if I was at a conference and I had a degree behind me, it said I was a PhD, a doctor, and I stood in front of a big auditorium full of doctors in the audience, and I stood up there and I said, "My name's Dave Warwak, and I discovered a cure for cancer." Everyone would be jumping up and down. They'd be like, "Wow, wow, wow." Well, we already know it. It's veganism. Prevention. You don't get yourself into that trouble eating that stuff. And that's the meat and the dairy, the cheese, the eggs. You eat just one egg a week, and you run 3 times the risk of cancer, ovarian or breast cancer. If you're a man, it's prostate cancer. Why would you do that? And why would you cook up eggs for your children? And anyone that knows me knows that I don't like silence. And to me, silence is complicity. And I don't want to be complicit in this stuff. And it's happening on our watch and right in front of me. I can't sleep at night thinking about some of the stuff that goes on. So I'm going to be selfish, and I'm going to talk about some things that I got to get off my chest that I've been witnessing that really get me mad. And maybe I'll be able to sleep a little bit better at night. One of the things that really pisses me off is that they feed children E. coli in the school lunch program. It's infested with mad cows from confined, tortured, murdered animals that are pumped full of hormones and steroids and antibiotics, and that the pharmaceutical companies are making more money supplying animal agriculture with the same medicines that they give us. They've got us coming and going. And the real war against drugs is going on in Afghanistan. 80% of the world's opium comes from Afghanistan. Not a lot of people know that. You think we're there for oil or Osama? We're still there. And you know what we do? We make sure that the pharmaceutical companies get that opium. And we protect them, the Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, the people we're supposed to be fighting against. And then we make them grow their crops, and we protect them, and they harvest it, and they process it, and then they refine it, and they package it, and then we shoot them in the head, and we take their drugs, and we give it to the pharmaceutical companies so they can make all the drugs that you need, Oxycontin, the morphine, the codeine. It all comes from opium. 80% of the world's drugs, opium, come from Afghanistan. The CIA has been caught twice, red-handed, with plane loads full of heroin that they were going to trickle down or trickle up in Wall Street. They were caught at LaGuardia Airport, planes from Afghanistan to USA loaded with heroin. The CIA, your government, that's the war on drugs, twice. And they really do believe in trickle up because they're running out of money. They're using their credit cards and stuff. This is ridiculous. And you say, what does this have to do with the animals and being a veg? Well, people that are vegan know the truth about the world. It's not hard to see, and we have to stand by and witness this stuff. And so there's things that I just have to get off my chest, things that piss me off. War. War is not vegan. We have a solution to war. I didn't just discover cancer, the cure, prevention. I have a solution to war. You look at all the social justice movements that have been going on, and they all, have costs of people dying in it for it, fighting in the streets, and there's been murder, whether any social movement that there's ever been, whether it's been racism, you name it. And you look at the vegan movement, we're nonviolent. We have an answer to war. We don't fight. We try and educate people, and we don't let people off the hook. Never in the history of the animal rights movement has there been one murder. Think about that. Another thing I got to get off my chest, Obama. Oh my God. I cannot believe the drone attacks that he's sending around the world, these little robotic planes. I actually had a job in Wisconsin making power supplies for the government. I kept asking, what am I making? What am I making? He said, don't ask, you don't want to know. And finally I found out, I went on the web. We were making power supplies for drones. Drones are these little toy electronic planes that are GPS guided that fly into people's houses and blow them up. Out of every 1,000 drone murders by drone attacks, 980 of them have been children, women, and people just gathering for cooking recipes or classes in their homes. You think about that. 980 innocent people dying for every 1,000 that are killed. That's terrible track record. And that's how you create future terrorists in the world. When little Johnny loses his dad with some robotic plane from some country on the other side of the world, that's going to piss people off for generations. This war on terror, it's not about we have to fight them over there so we don't have to fight them here. You know what they're really saying is, we're gonna create fear of outsiders over there so we can divert the attention over there so you don't look at the real evil here. The real evil is Obama. He's the one starting wars. He couldn't wait to go into Libya. He put a hit out on the guy without even talking to the American public. He didn't even consult with Congress. He talked with all these other countries, everyone except his own. And then he went over there and he didn't follow instructions just to knock out airstrips. He dropped bombs on Gaddafi's house trying to kill the guy, and he's killing his relatives. That sounds like you're trying to start a war. You don't mess around with countries with nuclear weapons in Pakistan creating future terrorists when you can't secure your own borders. This is insane. So I got that off my chest. I feel a little better. Oh my God. The thing that gets me, though, is silence is complicity, but so is tolerance. Tolerance is complicity. If you tolerate it, you're part of the problem. And I'm up here bitching and saying these things. I'm getting them off my chest. I feel better about that. Silence is complicity. But now I realize tolerance is complicity. I'm not going to tolerate it. If I have a child, he's going to grow up a vegan, and he's not going to join some stupid war. I'm not going to put that death in my body. I used to weigh 280 pounds. I used to be carrying an extra person around. Now I got this little 5 pounds, but it's because vegan food tastes so good. You know, I eat a lot of it. You know, but you know, I would have been dead if I would have stayed on the path I was on. And to think of the pharmaceutical industry and the war complex that's going on and how everyone's greedy with the capitalism, they call this the industrial, pharmaceutical, military complex. It's written about much. It's going on. They all support each other. There's a big conspiracy of silence, and they're all against us. You know what this is? It's a bizarro world. You hear about this alternate universe where everything's the opposite of what it is here? Think of that. We're there. We're there. Everything's opposite of the way it should be. Nothing makes sense. Right is wrong, up is down, left is right. You're like, what is with people? Well, we're the ones caught in that alternate universe, and we gotta somehow, you know, escape alive and maintain our sanity. And you do that by going vegan and getting others to go vegan. You owe it to your brothers and sisters and the children. You know, if you think about what they say, everything they say is wrong. They say you care more about animals than you do people. If we didn't care about people, we wouldn't be trying to save our brothers and sisters or our mother and father at Thanksgiving time. Why wouldn't you say something about the dead bird in front of your face? I mean, you know, these are the things, they get me, they get to me. And so I don't tolerate it in my own circle, and I don't tolerate it from those around me. And everyone knows it. I love this shirt. I went walking the streets of New York wearing this shirt. I didn't even have to say anything. There's people outside eating, and I just walk up to them, and I look at them. You know, I stand there, and I shake my head, and walk away. I know that they're at home talking about that guy. He had this big sucks shirt on, and he walked right up to us, and he shook his head. You know, what an ass, you know? Yeah, you know, you can have fun with your activism, but it really is a serious subject. And it doesn't just cure cancer, and it's not just a solution to the violence and war. It's a solution to our environment. You look at the methane emissions in factory farming, I have to think of Obama again. He's read the United Nations report with the 100 best scientists from all the countries. They all signed off on it. It's been out for years. And in it, they say factory farming is the major cause in every problem we're experiencing in the environment, from climate change to rising sea levels. And it's those methane emissions. You know, they're more damaging than all the car emissions. So, you know, they're dropping the ball on it purposely. And what do? They go to Copenhagen and they have these meetings about climate change, and they sit around and they eat steak and they talk about reducing carbon emissions by 18.5% by the year 2020. I got news for you, folks. The year 2020, the sea level is going to rise several inches at least. They're predicting much more. They're saying like 4 feet, which is really scary stuff. And it's happening now. There's flooding in the Mississippi. There's all these record rains. Sea levels going up. The temperature's been warmer every year for the past 4 years since they've been tracking weather. I mean, and they're still out there eating their steak. And I have to think about the eating thing. What about veal and foie gras? Our president loves veal and foie gras. He travels around the world at taxpayer expense eating veal and foie gras. And then he talks about being against torture. Foie gras is a product of torture. They torture the duck by force feeding him a pipe down their throat. to make their livers fat. They cut them open, and then they cook it up as pate, and the Obamas love it, both of them. And Michelle, she has an idea to have an organic garden, and then she brings the children into the kitchen to cook up the things they pick, and she adds a little chicken to the mix. I mean, come on. Little chicken cookers of America, we need to change. Chickens are very loving animals, and they don't deserve the treatment we're giving them. And you look at sheer numbers of the misery that we create. Chickens are, birds are the most abused animal on the planet by far, just in numbers. And it's sad, and you have to stop and think when you see a child biting into a drumstick or a chicken breast, and the bone is right there. You have to stop and say something if this is going on in front of you. Because it's not just silence is complicity, but tolerance is complicity. When you're tolerating it in front of you, you have to stand up. The school lunch program is really bad with the children. You talk about the military-industrial pharmaceutical complex, you have to take it one step further and really talk about what it is. They say that we don't have an economy, that we don't have any goods to sell and things. That's not true. Our economy revolves around food. It'll always be there. People will always eat. Even if they go vegan, our economy will probably grow in immense ways. They won't have to subsidize factory farming and support this evil industry that's polluting things, and it's a losing business. Just the water alone to raise a pound of beef costs $90 of your tax dollars, your vegan dollars. And so you have to look at this. And then what do they do with this losing business? They can't even sell the stuff because it's such poor quality. It's a step below fast food and above pet food. South Korea won't touch it because it's infested with mad cow. All these countries know about it. So our government buys it from them and then distributes it to people with no choice. Children in schools, elderly in nursing homes, and prisoners in jails are eating a step below fast food, just above pet food. And they know that they're feeding them E. coli, which is shit. We know it is. How can a parent willingly say, I'm cool with my child eating shit as long as you cook it to 170 degrees, You don't want the E. coli to do anything. But you're okay with them eating shit? But then if they find some rat shit, some peanut butter, they're like, hey, don't do that, no. The spinach, and they don't tell you about how the pet pig escaped from the factory farm and he had feces on his hooves and he ran through the field of spinach. They don't talk about how it started. And that animals are always the cause. All right, I'm getting the yank signal. I got 5 more. Oh, baby. All right, let's get to the crux of the problem. Early education with children is the most important thing going on, right? And you have to be honest with children. And you say, well, put this into real terms. How can we take everything else you said and tie it to that? Well, the point is that the people running things now have been brainwashed in early childhood. That's why you can't even talk to them. Their minds are closed, their learning is done, they're not lifelong learners, and they believe that milk is good and that meat is necessary for protein. All the lies and things that have been proven wrong again and again and again. So if you know early childhood is that important, you have to look at how it all happens. When a child is raised to eat dog meat, as was written about in an autobiography called The Audacity of Hope by our president, he admits between the ages of 6 and 12 he lived in Indonesia, where his stepfather Lolo raised him on a diet of dog meat, which he said was tough, and grasshoppers and snakes. I mean, this is sick business. And his stepfather told him, you take on the spirit of whatever animal you eat, and someday I'm going to bring you home a lion. Now you tell that to a small child, he'll believe it his whole life. My dad told me that fish don't feel pain, and I grew up to be a fishing guide until I figured it out many years ago. Just 4 years ago, but for many years I was a fishing guide, and I didn't make the connection. So you say, well, what does that have to do with anything? I'm saying this is his disregard for throwing around other people's children, for not allowing photographers to photograph coffins coming home from war. If people knew and saw the real consequence of war, it wouldn't go on. They're hiding people from filming factory farms and those things. You have to be honest with children. Otherwise, they're going to grow up to be leaders of countries who start wars and bomb people and create future terrorists and fly around the world and eat veal and foie gras. That's how important early childhood is. You think about that, and you think about the mess we're in. One of those children that you mess up on a diet like that could end up the leader of the most powerful nation in the world, and we'll have hell to pay. Do not re-elect that man. I'm telling you. Could be the end. All right. Thank you. Rock on.